Hello, everyone. Welcome, Mr. Viteri here. Back at it again. Unit 8, Day 6. And today we're going to learn all about water quality or wastewater treatment, rather. Now, wastewater treatment is a term used to describe how the water that we throw down the toilet, the sink, basically gets treated before it's released back into the ecosystem. And yes, that is correct. When you do number one or number two, doo doo, it is going to be released into basically out into the wild. What happens? How is it treated? That's what we're going to learn today. But before we even go into that, I want you to know how the sewer system works in a community and typically around different areas. Now, in cities, developed cities, everybody is connected. And so let's look at these homes in this image here. Now, the drain, there's going to be one main drain that comes out of your house. And the sink, the bathrooms, the toilets, the sink in the bathroom, all of those are going to join to one pipe. And then that's going to feed into the sewer that's in front of your house or apartment building or wherever you're living. And it's going to be connected to a sewer. The next house, apartment building, is also going to have a main pipe. All of these are going to feed into the sewer. Now, in older communities, I lived in an older community in Jersey City. There's only one passage system. So when you flush the toilet, it's going into the drain. When it rains, it's going into the same drain. Now that causes potential problems because think of if everyone's flushing the toilet and there's a lot of rain for about 3 or 4 days, those pipes can get filled with water. And so then sometimes there's a backup. Also, the wastewater treatment plant can't just take unlimited amounts of water. So when it rains and continues to rain, if it's treating just regular rain, it's kind of pointless. So, updated cities that have developed the infrastructure have a separate system for drainage ways. Okay, so here is a great pipe. A great image, so you could see what that really looks like. So here is the drainage pipe. This brown water is going to go towards the wastewater treatment plant. This here is going to be the regular rainwater drains. Now, it's a great picture because it's also showing like oil, banana peels, an apple, cans, or whatever. Because you need to understand if you pollute on the ground, that's going to go into a waterway because the water's going to pick it up and it's not going to go to the wastewater treatment plant where it could be removed. Rather, it's going straight into one of the waterways, so the Raritan River and then into Raritan Bay where we live here. So important, don't pollute. Understand whatever you throw down the toilet is ultimately going to get released into the ecosystem as well. Um, but but not all that water goes that way. And really, depending on where you live, if you have two separate drainage systems or basically one combined. The way I think you can tell is if you, when you're walking on a sidewalk, you go to a corner and you see a drain. If it says drains particularly straight to waterways, that's going to go straight to waterways. So I want you to pay close attention and make sure you don't try to pollute. You shouldn't be polluting. But specifically, if you have a sewer that doesn't have those separations, know that that water that's going down the drain is not going towards, not going to get treated in the wastewater treatment facility. Okay, because they could get overflowed as well. Oh my God, can you imagine that? And I think one time in because our wastewater treatment plant, all of our waste goes to Sayreville, and they got so much rain before they switched over to the different pipes. So the areas, and they're just like huge swimming pools. There's like three of them, but if they get filled, then the poop just basically starts overflowing, and that whole area was overflowed with a mixture of sewage. So anyhow, let's get to that wastewater treatment. Okay, we have from our CED primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment. I'm going to show you an image of how that all works. I want you to make sure that you understand there's primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay, primary is going to be the first thing, obviously, secondary second, and tertiary being the third. The first thing that you want to do with all that water that's coming out of those drains is try to take out the larger particles. Switch here. Okay, let me go back, and I put those two slides in there basically to show you that the houses, they're connected. Here's the sewer. Here's a storm drain. And one time in Jersey City, I'll tell you the story. I don't know. I might have even told you the story, but I'm going to repeat the story. Imagine that there was no other sewage pipe here. Rather, it was just the one pipe. And I lived on the bottom of a hill. So here is I'm young. We didn't have homes growing up. We lived in apartments. So this is not something that was taught to me. We did not know. We bought the first house that we could. And it was affordable, so we were able to buy it. But if I had to do it over again, this is one of those gems that I'm giving you. Please pay attention to these. You want to know where the house that you're buying is. Is it on the bottom of a hill? If it's at the bottom of a hill, then all the rain, all the snow, all the leaves are going to pretty much stay right in front of your house. The topography, the pitch of the ground that you live in, does it have great drainage of the street? Because think about that, right? So when people like mow their lawns and they're blowing the grass clippings into the street, where do you think they end up? They're going to go downhill. If your house is down there, you might have to deal with that. If you have proper drainage, then you'll be okay. But it's just something that you have to deal with. Anyway, water is an issue. Also, understand that, do you have two drainage basins or just one? If you have one, just check out what happened in my house. So we had a basement. Here's the drain, okay? And it was raining for like 4 days straight. So the water started, the regular drainage started to basically fill this, and it couldn't go down here fast enough. So when we were flushing the toilet, we're trying to flush the toilet, but it's not going down. So where do you think the water is eventually going to come up? The water pushed up, sewage water was pushing up and just coming out of my toilet in the basement. And it was really, really, really bad. And yeah, that happened. And there's nothing I could do. There was immense pressure. I remember stepping in about a foot of sewage, stuffing a towel down the toilet, trying to clog it so it wouldn't come back up. But pretty much I just had to wait till that water passed through. And then I had to drain my basement at that particular time. So thank God we got what we did was we installed a lever here. It's a one-way valve. Water could go this way, but water can't go back that way. So that was a fix that we did, but we had to pay to go through the foundation and do that. But anyhow, quick story. Know where you live. Another picture, a bathroom upstairs connected to the same drainage pipe. Okay. And this is that backwater prevention device that we did not have in that house at that time. So look at this. Water can go this way, but water cannot go back up. Now, important, when you're in your toilet, what do you not want to drop down there? You don't want to drop motor oil. You don't want to drop antifreeze. You don't want to drop pesticides or fertilizers in there. They should not go in there. All right. There are microbes back at the wastewater treatment plant that are going to be susceptible. You don't want to kill those. You don't want to drain. You don't want to kill them because they're doing all the good stuff for us. The motor oil, or any oil for that matter, is an issue. Okay, it floats to the top. It clogs machines. We'll show you how we get rid of it in the wastewater treatment plant. Another great picture, just summing it all up. Okay, now here's where we need to pay attention and be able to draw this. We need to be able to understand how this is working. Understand that all the homes are connected to this one huge. It's probably like a 12-foot pipe. You can walk through it. No, 8 foot. I think it's 8 foot. An 8-foot diameter pipe. That's like where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, running around with their skateboards. That's the big sewer. That comes into the wastewater treatment plant. The first thing that has to be removed is the larger items. Like people throw tires down there, sneakers down there, dead bodies down there. Dead bodies get washed up. Like deer sometimes get in there. Alligators. I don't know. There could be alligators. Okay. Raw. So primary treatment is going to be like raw screens. Okay, raw screens that are going to basically block it. Just think of it like a big gate, and only smaller objects are able to get through. They have something called a comminutor. I don't think you have to know that term, but what's happening here is kind of like a blender. So the screens are going to prevent the larger objects from getting in. Then the rest of the sewage is going to go down here. This is going to kind of mix it all up. Now, heavier things that can break are going to break, and that's typically like, let's say, like rock, or like, not a really hard rock, but things that go through the gate. Then it just kind of gets softer. All right, mixes all up. Then, by density, the heavier objects fall down. That's what we call grit. So what's happening here? Here's like the mixed nasty sewage that got all blended up. The heavier products basically fell down here. That's the grit. It's probably sediment that's coming down, mostly rocks and stuff like that. The rest of that water is skimmed off the top, and now you have what they call a primary clarifier, which basically is just going to allow this more heavier stuff, the heavier caca, the nasty stuff, the heavy sewage to just fall out to the bottom. Okay, that is primary treatment. Let's rewind a bit. In the notes here, you will see some vocabulary that you need to understand. Influent, effluent. Influent, the water coming in. Effluent, the water coming out. So technically, this would be influent on the top left. This would be effluent. It's calling it effluent here because it's going to be on its way out. Influent, something coming in. Effluent, something coming out. In this diagram, it's typically going to be sewage. Now, this effluent at this particular time is now going to go through secondary treatment. Secondary treatment can be summed up by saying aeration. Aeration. What's in aeration? Air, and particularly what we all need for respiration, is oxygen. So aeration is going to provide oxygen to this sewage. The water is still brown at this point. Okay. And sludge is also a vocabulary word that you need to know. Think of sludge as, if we have sewage, the heavy caca, the heavy doo-doo, the heavy number 2 that basically falls down to the bottom. So now we have sludge coming over here. So the water's still brown. Now we have dissolved caca in the water. And now, are you going to write caca on the... Don't write caca on the exam. Let's go feces. Feces is a much better word. All right, feces spelled F-E-C-E-S. Okay, so now you have this feces dissolved water, brown water, and it's being supplied with oxygen or air. It's better if it's oxygen, pure oxygen, and it's going to bubble in here. Now, what is going to fix the feces? Who eats feces? Bacteria eat feces. When they're giving oxygen, instead of working on, let's say, slow motion, they work on fast motion. There's tons of poop there, and they have so much oxygen, so they reproduce like crazy, and they start eating the poop. They eat like crazy. They're trying to dissolve all that poop. It's like there's even super bacteria in there. Okay, they have to measure how much bacteria that are in there to make sure that the rate of digestion is properly to get the water cleaner. Now, that's what's happening in secondary treatment. Typically, bacteria are giving oxygen so they could digest the fecal particles that are in solution. Wow, that was impressive. Okay. Now, here's one thing that's also really, really cool. It then goes, and this is very slow moving, it goes to a secondary clarifier. When the bacteria have eaten all of the fecal material, they form these huge pockets. Basically, they get very, very heavy, and they flow down to the bottom. They flow down to the bottom. And now this water is relatively clear. If you were in the wild, you might even drink it. That's how beautiful it looks. Okay. So now this, okay, some of it is going to come back into the aeration tank. Remember, I was telling you some of that bacteria need to be replenished, but the heavier stuff is going to now join the sludge that was removed from the beginning. You don't know what sludge is? Heavy fecal material that does not go in solution. Finally, tertiary treatment, which means third treatment, is going to be to chlorinate this water. So we will add a disinfectant in some wastewater treatment plants. They use ozone to disinfect the water. Sometimes they use ultraviolet radiation to make sure all the microbes are destroyed before they release it back into the environment. Now, the bacteria are trying to get rid of most of the NPK. However, during this discharge, there still is NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. A good place to dump this would possibly be in a wetland because a wetland can absorb excess amounts of NPK. Sadly, this is not the case most often. We typically return this to a river, which then gets washed into the bay in our case, and then the ocean. That's why we have dead zones. Okay, that's why we don't have a dead zone here. Do we have a dead zone? No, I go fishing over here. But typically, there's a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so hopefully you understood that. Let me review a couple things: influent, effluent, primary treatment, secondary treatment, and aeration tank. Tertiary treatment is typically chlorination or ultraviolet radiation that is used to destroy the microbes. Why is that important? You'll see in our next section we have to talk about waterborne disease, and using something like chlorine is going to make sure that we don't have any of that. All right. Okay. Let's watch this video really quick. I'm going to put my volume up to make sure that you can hear it as well. I like the video. I like the video a lot. I think he was a little incorrect in the chlorine taking out the nitrogen and the phosphorus. That was a misconception. The chlorine does not do that. It kills the bacteria. That's what it's going to be doing. Um, you could double check me if you want. Uh, Now, what was cool? You saw that truck on the bottom. So sludge, right? The heavy stuff that comes out of the sewage, tons of NPK, could be used as compost. Wait a second. Do you want human waste used as compost? You might not. Okay, so there are rules in regards to if you could use human waste for particular crops. I know here in the United States, you cannot use an in ground crop like potatoes and grow them in compost, a human compost. Um, but my neighbor, right, he told me to buy this stuff called Milorganite, and I bought it, and I don't know why I bought the fertilizer. What did I buy the fertilizer? Because I was planting a tree. I was planting a tree, and I was wondering where did they get this Milorganite, and then basically they get it from sewage. So I'm spreading it around, and then afterwards I look at, hey, they get it from sewage. But anyhow, the dried out sludge can be used for that. It could also be used to cover landfills, like we discussed before. You were amazing. Enjoy the day. It is gorgeous outside. All right. Have a beautiful day.